What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is you get around to watching this video, guys. Once again, my name is Steven. This is Gate City Sports Channel, and if you are new to the channel, if I can ask you to do a huge favor, please go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button, guys. It is what keeps YouTubers motivated to keep pushing out more content on a daily basis. To all my OGs, you already know what I'm going to ask you to do, guys. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. That thumbs up button, guys, is what basically helps us communicate with YouTube, so YouTube knows to then take this content and push it out amongst the rest of YouTube. All right, y'all. So we kind of began yesterday when we were talking about this idea of like, okay, we need to add team speed to this defense. And I told you guys, like, there are a few positions that are key to adding team speed. One of them being the guy that plays that wide nine and that joker. You got to have speed there, right? I talked about the linebackers. The linebackers must have speed because they must be a what they call a quick flow kind of defense. They got to read and react quickly. All right, that's a fast flow defense. If you don't have linebackers who can't play in the fast flow, you're going to suffer in team speed, and overall, it's going to be really difficult to run these particular types of zone concepts that we run in Philadelphia. And then I told you guys that do not sleep on free safety. I do think that one of the areas that we have struggled with, and it could have been due to Rodney McLeod's like lack of health. He's had some issues over the last couple of years because early on when he signed to Philadelphia, I thought McLeod had pretty good range, but recently we really suffered from not having safety play, with range, guys who can get back over and provide support. And if you're going to play a lot of single high safety, that's a very, very big role for that free safety. He's got to have a lot of range to get over the field. Now, if you're playing more two deep looks, if you're playing more, cover two looks or cover four looks, like then you don't need a guy that has quite as much range. He still needs to be rangy, but maybe you can get away with a guy with a little less foot speed. Unfortunately, if you're going to play single high, you need a lot of speed there. So today's conversation, guys, I want to talk about free agent acquisitions that we could make that would give us maybe the range that we would need at free safety. And there lies the problem. Yesterday, I talked about internal candidates. Today, we're talking about free agent acquisitions. Tomorrow, we'll probably discuss more of the draft targets. But if you're going to talk about this idea of who to target, there's a lot of things that come in play, guys. I mean, you can't ignore the money. You only have so much money you can spend on free agents. So you got to prioritize what positions mean the most. And then on top of that, guys, we need to really have an understanding of what kind of coverage scheme are we going to see? Why are we running certain coverage schemes? I showed you guys yesterday that, Jim Schwartz hasn't always been a cover one, cover three guy. Like in the past, he's played a lot of cover two. He's always been a zone guy. He's always been a little more conservative. He's not a very blitz happy individual, but nonetheless, you do have to kind of define that. Like, are we going to be primarily a cover three and cover one? Maybe working in a little bit of cover six and a little bit of cover two occasionally. You got to define that. How much of the big nickel are we going to play? Are we looking to add three kind of starting caliber safeties that where we can play a lot more big nickel? Is that something that we see ourselves, playing a lot more? Do we like that particular coverage scheme? Those kind of questions have to be answered, and that's kind of what we're getting in today, guys. So without further ado, let's jump into today's topic.
Asked here, guys. I think they're going to get to the line of scrimmage and go. I think they're going to get right up on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, if we're going to talk about adding to this safety position, then we need to discuss what the fits are for the types of schemes that we run. And I do think that Jim Schwartz showed a little flexibility last season in the way that he ran his coverage schemes. You can see right here, guys, this is an example of a cover four, and it's a pretty unique concept. What you have here, guys, cover four is a zone concept where you have four deep defenders. Each guy's playing a quarter of the field. So you got as your essentially left cornerback, you got Sidney Jones as your strong safety. You had Andrew Sendejo as your free safety. You had Rodney McLeod, and as your right cornerback, you had Rasul Douglas. So each of those guys was playing a fourth of the field. And then you had your underneath zone guys. So you had your essentially your nickel cornerback. I think that is Orlando Scandrick. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with the angles guys, but I think that's number 38, which would be Orlando Scandrick. Then you had, it looks like either Zach Brown or Nigel Bradham playing in there. And then you have Malcolm Jenkins coming down in the box, thus making it a big nickel look. So you have a big nickel cover four concept built in here, guys. What that means, if you've never heard of a big nickel, just a quick explanation, guys. It's where you're in a nickel, so you have five defensive backs on the football field, right? But within those five defensive backs, one of those defensive backs basically is going to be another safety. Some people would call the big nickel a 43. It's just an inversion of a 43. If you're bringing in another safety that's coming down the box, it's basically that safety just playing the linebacker's role. But for me, there is some distinction between big nickel because I think it will dictate a little bit in your coverage schemes. I think even in this particular situation, you can see you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You really got six defensive backs on the field. You can really call that the dime if you really wanted to, because you do have Orlando Scandrick and Malcolm Jenkins on the field with one single linebacker, which kind of, normally would indicate a dime coverage scheme. But you're playing three safeties in this particular look, guys. So look at the defensive line and look at the characteristics that are here, guys. You have a stand-up joker, all right? If you look at your right defensive end, that is Derek Barnett, and he's standing up as a joker. Now look to your left defensive end. He's out there in a wide nine technique. You guys see how far off he is, and he's right up on the tight end, right? You got Fletcher Cox playing, looks like a three technique to me. He's over the guard. Some people might call that a four, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. You get the point. And then if you look down on the other side, I can't tell what defensive tackle that is, but whatever defensive tackle that is playing a five technique. You can see that some people might call that a four as well, but I'm going to call it five because he's kind of in over the tackle, even though he's in the inside shoulder of the tackle. It's a unique defensive line arrangement. And clearly, the conception here was we wanted to get the pass rush home before Kirk Cousins and these receivers beat our zone defense. It didn't work. We didn't quite get that pass rush home. But you can see the way that the defensive line, these linebackers, and the secondary and the coverage schemes all fit together. So if we're talking about pieces that fit the scheme, guys, you got to find the right guys. And I think the most appropriate place to start is with a former player, a former cornerback, who we would be asking to come back as a free safety and play that coverage, kind of role as the free safety, that center fielder. Without further ado, guys, I'm talking about Jalen Mills. I'm going to get into the specifics about such a concept because I don't think that that's a layup, guys. I really don't. I think the first thing we must discuss when we talk about re-signing Jalen Mills is the idea of how much interest does Jalen Mills have in a position change from not only left cornerback, but from left cornerback to free safety. And that's not something I can personally answer. I don't know that I've heard Jalen Mills really speak out about that yet, but that has got to be a consideration. It's not as just easy as saying, I'll sign him back, let him play free safety. Well, I mean, there's got to be interest both ways there. Not only does there need to be interest on the Eagles' part to utilize him more as a safety than a cornerback, but there has to be interest on Jalen Mills' part to play left cornerback versus, free safety. What is one deciding factor that you can use to measure how interested a player would be? I would say you can look to something like the average salary of a cornerback versus a safety. And I think one of the easiest ways you can do that is let's just take a number, let's say 64, right? Because there's, in theory, 32 starting cornerbacks, right? Well, 32 times 2, so 64, and then 32 times 2, so 64 starting safety. So let's just looking at basically the mean here. Let's go to the 64th player at corner in terms of pay and the 64th player in terms of safety in terms of play. And just see how drastic of a difference that is, because that's the first consideration you would have to take. Now, as I look at this, if I go to cornerbacks and I go to the 64th player, that's Dante Jackson, which is a cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, who makes $1.2 million. All right. In return, if I go to the 64th highest paid safety, that's John Johnson, strong safety for the Los Angeles Rams, who makes $688. Okay. So there is a difference in pay between corner and free safety. So right there, we already see that there could be contention here. Now, Could the Eagles say, okay, look, 1.2 to $800,000, it's a slight variance here. We're not going to lose the Green Goblin if he's willing. Willing is a key word here to do this transition over $400,000. We'll find a way of averaging this salary out. And I'm not saying that he would make that 64th pay, guys. I would suspect he'd make a little more than that. But that would obviously be kind of an avenue number one. Some of you might be asking, why would we even be considering Jalen Mills to play outside? Or I'm sorry, to play inside. Well, the fact is that when this kid was coming out of college, most NFL scouts actually labeled this kid either a nickel cornerback or a free safety. And he played a lot in the free safety. Now, he played all across the defense, even at LSU. He did play some outside corner. He did play some nickel corner. He did play safety. He played at all of them, but he was primarily and the most effective playing free safety. So there is some past history to go upon to say Jalen Mills would be a natural slide and a natural fit there. I think with a guy like Jalen Mills, you don't even have to sweat some of the gross, concepts like, oh, do we have to worry about, coverage schemes? Can he fit a cover six? Can he fit a cover three? Can he fit a cover one? Can he fit cover two? Like, he's been playing in this system. Mind you, it's been on the outside, but at least he has some familiarity with the way Jim Schwartz is going to run this. Now, we do have Markin Manuel. That's the kind of, oddball situation there to where the unpredictable element of it. But nonetheless, we have history, we have basis here. That would be the conditions for the Green Goblin returning back to Philadelphia as a free safety. Ask me my likelihood of that happening, I'd say 20 to 30%. Me personally, I say that's a 20 to 30% possibility that Jalen Mills would not only come back to Philadelphia, I think that's more of a 50-50 mix, but in addition to returning to Philadelphia on a contract, have a position change. Then I'd say you're about 20, 30% of that possibility happening. I'm leaving a window for that occurring just because I do think Jalen Mills loves Philadelphia. And I do think for the most part, the fan base here in Philadelphia, we love Jalen Mills in return. So I'm not closing the door on that situation, guys. I'm just saying I don't know that's the most likely outcome that we're going to talk about and discuss today. If you were to ask me who my number one choice is to go out and free agency and sign as a the future free safety of the Eagles, my answer is very simple. It's Kendall Fuller for multiple reasons. Number one, I think he has the versatility to come down and cover a slot receiver. I think he has the range to play that free safety spot. I think he has actual ball skills. And I think he can play outside if you need him to play outside in a pinch. Not his most ideal situation with him, but he's one of these guys that the Chiefs got smart about, realized like, okay, like he's not an outside corner. He's not playing well enough there. And they started playing him inside, moved him to safety. I mean, my opinion, Kendall Fuller is a guy, when you look at the stat sheets, it doesn't jump off to you. He's not like a guy that had a lot of interceptions and things like that. But when you watch the film on Kendall Fuller, you see that he was really starting to come on as a free safety. This is a guy that won't break the bank to go get. And I think he's a good football player, guys. I mean, this is my number one choice in terms of external candidates through free agency. I would go get Kendall Fuller. He's young. He does have enough mobility back there to have the range that you need. He does have some ball skills. I mean, if you don't believe me about his ball skills, just take a look at the Super Bowl. Watch him play this ball in the air and what he does with it.
Coaches for the Chiefs that have not been able to taste this moment. This is.
I just think that kid has tremendous range for a free safety. I mean, I don't know what took Kansas City so long to put the pieces together with Kendall Fuller, but they did. And they got a Lombardi, not because of Kendall Fuller, but it was part of what happened there. And I got to tell you, man, look, the kid is pretty good playing single high. He can play, he can play cover four. He can definitely play cover two. He can play, man systems. Like if they're playing cover one, he's got the range to get all around the field. I just think he's the ideal person to come in here in Philadelphia for a reasonable amount, probably less than what we're paying Rodney McLeod. And he's got way more range than McLeod does. I mean, I want to show you guys the coach's angle of this play. He's number 29. Watch the coach's angle of how much ground this kid covers. This is the way you play center field as a free safety. Go get the ball when it's in the air. I think a lot of the reasons I gave you guys about Avonte Maddox yesterday and why I think Avonte Maddox makes sense to move to free safety, Kendall Fuller gives you some of that same flexibility. I still think Avonte Maddox is a slightly more athletic corner than even Kendall Fuller is, but I think Kendall Fuller has a little more stature to him. He seems like a guy who's a little more durable to play at free safety. And I like the kid, man. He's my number one choice if we're going external candidates. I think this is a kid who can play and he will immediately improve our secondary. Look, this is a guy that I'm watching closely. I really am. I'm watching very, very closely. But I will get into my number two guy now. My number two selection is a very talented player who admittedly has bounced around the league a little bit. Hopefully, he's a guy you could bring into Philadelphia and give him a longer extended contract and maybe bring some stability to where he's not bouncing around the league so much anymore. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think he's been with like Arizona, San Diego, now Carolina. But I'll say this about Trey Boston. Everywhere he's gone, the guy's a ball hawk. He will make plays on the football. And I said earlier that, in an earlier video, I want to say it was a week or two ago, I talked about one of the key focuses on defense has to be creating turnovers. Okay, we know that we're more of a bend don't break kind of mentality, but we got to be able to take the ball away too. Strip sacks, interceptions. We've got to give this offense more opportunities to put more points up on the board. And I think Trey Boston is a guy that makes a lot of sense in that regard. I think that he is a very, very good center fielder in this league. I think that he can read the quarterback very well and he reacts pretty well on the football. I don't know that Trey Boston will necessarily give you the same flexibility of coming down and playing, playing as a nickel almost, or being able to bounce outside if you really need him to. I don't know how comfortable I would be with Trey Boston in that role per se. But if you're just talking about simple cover three, cover one, single high safety guy that's going to play up top and play over top of everything, I think Trey Boston is a very productive football player in that regard.
Bobby Wagner looking to throw. It's Gordon.
I love the fact that that was a gadget play, and yet you saw Trey Boston read it perfectly, was not fooled by it, got over the top, and made the play on the football. That's what I think this Eagle defense is missing. I mean, how many times did we get burnt consecutive weeks with damn trick plays? We need ball players. We need guys who can go out there and make plays on the ball, guys who can turn it over. I mean, it just, it could take the ball away. It, it's a desperate need, in my opinion, guys. I think you can't sleep on some of these guys that can do that. All right, I want to get into my kind of third pick, and it's going to be a combination of two guys. And this is like really what I think is top of the market guys that maybe it's a little unlikely that this happens. Number one, will he even hit free agency? Will these teams retain their services? And number two, I think both of these guys they're gonna cha-ching. They're gonna make money. I think this one could be a bit of a far shot here. Number one, you're gonna pay a premium. I do think Justin Simmons, you're gonna have to pay this kid. He's 26. I think he might be 27 by the time the season starts. He's young. He's getting in the prime years of his life, and I think he's going to make bank, guys. I think this kid's going to cost you 12 mil plus this season. And I don't know how much money the Eagles legitimately want to invest in that free safety role. I don't think we're that high when we already have a situation looming with Malcolm Jenkins to pay a kid. Justin Simmons, look, kid's a good football player. Even if he were to take, like was coming under what I expect him to be, if it was around 9 or 10 million a year. Number one, I think the Broncos will seal the deal if that's the asking price for Justin Simmons. I don't think he'll even hit free agency if that's the price. But I just, I like the kid. I want to mention him. I'm aware of him. I know he's young. I know he makes very good plays on the football. I know that he's a very good football player. I just don't think it's realistic. Hence the reason I didn't really move him up on my list. That's why he's down on that third kind of tier, just because I can't see the Eagles breaking the bank like that for him, to be quite honest. But I want to go into what I consider the tie for the third one, which is another kind of if and kind of situation that has to happen. All right, the last person I want to talk about today is not necessarily a free safety. He's really a strong safety. And this is an if and scenario. If Malcolm Jenkins and the Philadelphia Eagles are to part ways, you know, And we save that additional money. There's your and part here, your if and we have that additional savings now where we're pushing 50 million. Then I could see the Eagles targeting a guy like Anthony Harris. If and only if part A of that happens. I just can't see the Eagles paying that kind of money for safety play with Anthony Harris and Malcolm Jenkins and now having to designate one of these guys to be your free. Both of them are really strong, but I will say this: Anthony Harris can play the football. Anthony Harris will turn the ball over. He's good at that. I like the kid a lot. He's not the youngest dude. I think he's about 29. I think he'll be 29 this season, somewhere in that area, but still gives you 3 years off the clock compared to a guy like Malcolm Jenkins. So he's still 3 or 4 years younger than Malcolm Jenkins. So look, I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but if things kind of shake out that way and you're looking at free agency, then you kind of do have to replace at strong safety. And I can see Anthony Harris being a part of that equation. Justin Simmons, like I said, guys, I love him to death. I think he's a good football player. I can't see the Eagles spending that kind of money on a free safety. So this is what I think about the free safety position in terms of the available talent that is out there in free agency. I think you got one guy that's a likely, kind of situation of if all the ducks line in a row, you bring Jalen Mills back, you play him at free safety. Sure, I'm not opposed to that. My number one choice is you go get a guy like Kendall Fuller. I don't think he's going to cost you nearly as much as some of these other guys are. I think that there are some question marks about him, but I think the kid is very versatile. I think he can come in like Rodney McLeod used to do and play down in the nickel. He can be a nickel back, basically covering a slot receiver. He can play on the outside if you're in a matchup kind of situation where you're playing like a cover one or you're playing a zero out, zero blitz, all out blitz concept here. So he can play outside in that situation if he had to, if his man were to go outside. He's pretty good over the top. He can play center field. I showed you that. I mean, this kid he's a good football player. I like him personally. And then lastly, look, I really, really like Trey Boston. I think Trey Boston is the other guy that makes a lot of sense to me to come in and fill in at free safety. I'm not discounting the fact that the Eagles may bring back Rodney McLeod, but I think that would be a mistake. I just don't think he has the range to play what we need him to play in the system we're playing. I think if you bring back Rodney McLeod, I think you got to go to more of a cover two system. I don't think you can sit there playing these cover three and cover one concepts because I don't think he has the range to play that. So scheme fit. Scheme fit is my final point. On the topic of scheme fit, there's one guy I've kind of left off of here because I do think that he's more of a strong safety, although he's labeled a free safety. He can play free safety, and that's Clinton Dix. I think Clinton Dix, if you're going to play a lot of like cover three and cover six with cover one, I think he can definitely be a fit as well. So I would give you that number 4 would be Clinton Dix. But I think that's the outside safety market kind of developing here for Philadelphia. Let me know what you guys think, and let's roll into the question of the day. Question of the day, ladies and gents. All right, who's your favorite? I told you, mine's Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller's the guy I would like to see. Who's your favorite? You got strong safety candidates and free safety guys. You got these in-betweeners like Anthony Harris and Clinton Dix who can play both. You got top of the market guys like Justin Simmons out of Denver, who I think is a very good, I think he's a very good safety. He can play the ball very well. I think he's going to cost you a fortune. You get, lower key guys I think are good football players that, maybe he's just no telling why he's bounced around the league, but he has in Trey Boston. But I wouldn't mind adding him here to Philadelphia. And then I think you got the guy that's kind of being slept on a little bit, who I think is a very good football player and I think is a very good fit for Philadelphia, and Kendall Fuller. Let me know your favorite there. Also, hey, what do you think the value is? How much money do you think we're looking to spend on free safeties? Look up the average salaries, look at Rodney McLeod's salary, look at our available cap space, and you tell me, where do you think the Eagles are going to be when it comes to free safeties? Me, I think you're under 8 mil, and I think it's more likely you're between 3 and 6 mils what they're going to look to spend on free safety. And that probably just really depends on the fit and the piece and who it is. Final question. Is there any of you guys out there that just think like, nah, skip the free safety market, skip the safety market in general, and go draft? Let me know your thoughts, guys. You know what time it is. We're going to get out of here. And oh, yeah, how do we end videos? We go E-A-G-L-E-S. All right, y'all. Let's go, Eagles.